So the first time I did Vipassana, I discovered something really interesting, which was that I could shift my physical pain, and I did shift any pain I had in my entire body. And in that process, I discovered that I could heal anything I liked in my body. So it was a really great gift that that I'm going to share with you my experience, and maybe you can use some of the ideas for your own process of moving your own physical pain. So what happened was I arrived, and in the first 4 days they get you to just do the Anapana breathing. And what that is basically focusing all of your awareness to one point in your body. And that's this area, the triangle that is formed from the tip of the nose to the edges of the nostrils. And you're focusing only on the superficial skin surface area. You're not going up into the nose, the sinuses, down into the lungs. You're just following the sensation of what that skin surface feels like. And so when you start doing that, you start feeling, well, what does the area feel like? For me right now, I can feel sensations of a bit itchy, but not scratchy itchy, more like fuzzy. I can feel wetness. I can feel coolness because the fan is blowing. So the idea is that you're focusing on breaking down through the observation different types of sensations, and this is to really keenly train your awareness, so you can focus on a small part of the body. And what this also does is, because it's focusing on both nostrils and it's on the midline, it's helping to align the left and right hemisphere of the brain and synchronize the brain. And so I spent these 4 days in the Anapana breathing stage, trying to focus on that. But it's quite difficult because as you're sitting in this fixed posture for at least 1 hour, what starts coming up for most people is any physical pain. And so I started really feeling physical pain in my body, and that would always distract me away from doing this. So you'd always be switching back and forth from trying to concentrate to, oh my god, this is painful, I want to move around but I can't, all that kind of thing. And yeah, basically I would do lots of different things to try and change the pain, but the whole point is bringing you into a place where you have to sit with the pain, and you have to observe the pain more objectively than just labeling it pain. What is pain? What does this sensation in my body feel like? And then you have to start pulling it apart. Does it feel hot, cold, warm, itchy, numb? All these different types of feelings. And once you start differentiating these types of feelings instead of just labeling it pain, it actually starts shifting the once painful sensation. And also what starts coming up is maybe memories of interactions you've had with people. Maybe 20 years ago a memory will pop up, and you realize, oh, I hadn't thought of that in such a long time. And then as you notice that thought or that interaction come up, you realize that the sensation changes. So what is most likely happening there is that any blockage or pain sensation in your body might have its original cause in an emotional reaction you had to a situation with someone. So a lot of the pain in our bodies actually does really have an emotional cause. Because what is pain? Pain is just literally a blockage. And as this is a water system, a water and blood system, what does water need to do? In nature, it needs to flow. and anytime it can't flow, it will hit a blockage, and that blockage then comes up in our body as pain, because the things that need to flow have stopped flowing. And so a lot of this emotional reactions we have, you know, you can imagine when you're tense or and that creates torsions and twists inside the body, and that will basically stop the body system flowing. So, you know, a lot of the pain and the blockages can come from, I'm just stroking my cat, can come from the emotion as the precursor. And then obviously you've got, you know, trauma and accidents and things out of place, organs out of place and bones out of place that will stop the flow as well. So on the 5th day, after they started teaching the Vipassana technique, I happened to be sitting outside eating an apple, and I bit into this apple, and I had had a brace behind my teeth since I was about 14, and this brace, it snapped in half, and I was super happy that this snapped in half, because for years I'd been flicking it with my tongue, and it was actually creating a displacement of my teeth, which was the opposite of what it was meant to be doing. And I had been asking the dentists, you know, I think I need to get this removed, and they kept telling me, no, keep it in, and you know, I should have trusted my own intuition back then, but you know, I kept it in. It's actually caused now a bit of a gap from that. But anyway, I bit the apple, the thing broke, I ripped it out, and then I looked at it, and I was staring at this contorted piece of twisted metal, and I realized that that had been sitting behind my teeth, inside my jaw, where my teeth are, you know, implanted into, and I realized that that had been holding all of my facial muscles in this twisted, tense torsion, because the wire had been pulling it into an unnatural arrangement. And so after I pulled that out and I began inspecting, you know, all these twists, and I realized that all of my facial muscles were so, you know, bound up, and they'd been, yeah, in a state of twist for more than 15 years. From that point on, the Vipassana became a very interesting experience for me, because I realized that I needed to start moving all of this tension, starting with my jaw. And every time I was in my room, not in the meditation hall, I, you know, tried to sit there in stillness and do the Vipassana method, but I discovered really that all my body wanted to do was move. It wanted to move. And I thought, well, I'm not going to force myself into doing something I don't feel is right, so I'm just going to go with what my body is telling me. And so what ended up happening is that I just sort of sunk down like this, and then I dropped my head, and then I just felt that my body wanted to move itself. And so right now you can see I'm moving my neck, but only a little bit. And as I moved my neck a little bit, I could feel all of the muscle stretch in this part of my body. And then I'm totally relaxed in my body. My spine is completely curved. I've got my head hanging as a weight. And then I just moved my head a little bit further to the side. And in that position, I can feel that the muscle tension has just shifted slightly to a different set of muscles. And then I keep going, and what I'm noticing now is that I've got muscle tension here, but then in this hip, I've also got an activation going on. So I started doing this and becoming really super aware of all of the sensations and their different arrangements every time I'd make a subtle move. And so I'd go sort of millimeter by millimeter, and as I'd notice a point of tension on one muscle group, I'd feel the equal and opposite side, and I'd notice that it was, you know, in the opposite state of complete relaxation.
And then I just keep moving. Now I can feel that this side of my back down more the thoracic region started to activate, and this one here's slackened off. So as I was doing this procedure, I'm learning a lot about my body and how things go into contraction and relaxation as things move around. And I just move and move and move until I got to the point where I couldn't really go any further without actually stretching my muscle too much or overstretching. And then I just sit in that place, and then I'd explore which way my body felt the most easiest to move into. And then I felt like I couldn't go any further that way, so I'd start going back the other way. And immediately as I start going back this other way, you can notice that my head has dropped down so much lower because I've just released all of those muscles through that slow, gentle procedure. And so I just do this, going back and forth, noticing the points of activation and relaxation in different muscle groups. Now I'm at a point of overstretching this area of muscles. So I sit with it, take a breath, relax down, my body sinks deeper, and I start going back the other way. My head's gone even lower now because I've relaxed and released all these muscles. And going back the other way. And then when I got to the point where I'd stopped before, I realized I can go a bit further now. So I'd go a little bit further until I needed to stop, and then I'd go back the other way. And so as I did that, and I'd go back and forth, getting further and further each time, I ended up being able to do a full rotation in both directions with no points of tension, no pain, nothing stopping the movement. It was completely freed up. And I would say that whole procedure probably took about 2 days. And you can imagine that we were doing meditation from 6:30 in the morning until about 7 at night, in different, increments with breaks in between. And so you can imagine it's like swapping your full-time job hours of work for doing that. So you can and after I got to that point, I'd released all of my neck and my jaw. The next point obviously was to come down and focus on the shoulders and the upper thoracic region, and so I started working on that. And when I was in the meditation hall and I had to sit there and not move, I was doing it anyway. So I would sit in stillness and then just focus on what my spine felt like, and I noticed that I was doing all of this internal movement, and then back this way, internal movement, without moving externally. So I was still able to practice, and it wasn't a case of me moving my body with my mind, or like instructing, now I want you to move this way and that way. It was more like when I sunk into the feeling and maybe the heaviness of the feeling, my body just found ways to like open up and find the easiest way of going. And so when I was in my room and I'd moved into this thoracic region, following the neck stuff, I again, started off sitting on the floor, and now that I'd done all that neck stuff, I started maybe engaging my shoulders with it and going the same thing back and forth, a lot slower than this though. And then as I did that, I noticed, my shoulder wants to rotate forward, and then my rib cage actually wants to come up. So there's a lot of different ways you can sort of notice how your body finds the point of ease. And as I'm sinking down here, for example, I can feel all this erector spinae muscle in a point of tension. And my shoulder here, my elbow is sort of pulling my body down and weighting it. And my head is a weight too. My head's heavy like a bowling ball. And my shoulder's actually pulling my torso in the direction of the shoulder. And now that's creating a bit of a stretch on the opposite erector spinae muscles in a lower position. And then, you know, coming into different places. And then going back the other way, etc., as I explained. And that unwound most of my torso until the point where I needed to stand up and continue the process. So I ended up standing in my room and engaging my whole upper body, and it started basically needing to rhythmically move around and open itself up in different ways, and it became almost like untwisting dancing, that kind of thing. And you know, other people would call this qigong, and I know you're not meant to do qigong in Vipassana, but I just was following what my body wanted to do, so I was happy to be doing that. And once I got down from the thoracic region, and I had to start unlocking my hips, and that became, you know, doing the same kind of procedure until my whole body, arms and legs, were all engaged in this kind of unwinding rhythmic movement, until I was basically at the point where everything was freed up. And then I began to notice that because I felt so free, I was engaging with my day in a really different way. For example, when I started walking outside on the grass and the breaks, I was really aware of what the grass felt like under my feet. And you know, I'd never really spent much time feeling what grass felt like. I mean, do you ever notice like that with that much keen awareness how things really feel? We don't. We're just too stuck up here so much. So it was such a gift to be able to start really just being in my body, feeling what feeling feels like. And you know, probably for the first time since being a baby, to feel what being in a body feels like. And it became magical. It became like I've never felt like this before. I didn't know that this is what being in a body feels like, because it feels like alien almost. And one day I was sitting and I was drinking a cup of tea, and I became aware of the fact that I had different perspectives. One of them was I was aware that I was in a body, and I was in a body feeling what it felt like to be in a body. So I was a consciousness in a body, feeling the body. And then there was another part of me that was able to tell the body what it wanted the body to do. And then there was another part of me that was like an outside observer, observing the magic of this phenomenon happening. So I also give the example of imagine that this is your car, this is your vehicle, and normally you're driving the car, but in this experience I gave up the driving of the car to the vehicle, and I sat in the passenger seat observing. And so doing that, by being the observer, and I had this cup of tea, and I said, body, drink the tea. And I felt what it felt like to bring that teacup up to my lips and drink.
And while I was doing that, really feeling what all of those feelings felt like, I could feel the origin and insertion of every single muscle and every single tendon and ligament and bony structure, and the feeling of the movements that it took to do that action. And it felt almost like robotic, like and it was like I'd never observed all of the mechanisms of action it takes to do these things that we just do unconsciously all the time. Walking, eating, tea drinking, whatever, we just do it without really observing what's happening while we're doing it. And when you do that, it's a whole new sort of perspective on what it is to be inside a body, which is, even brushing my teeth became a full experience, standing there brushing and feeling what brushing felt like on all of the little parts of my muscles and my teeth and my cells. And that was just such an amazing feeling, and it went on and on like this. And by the time that was all finished, every time I sat in the meditation hall where I'd previously felt pain or uncomfortableness, I had complete free flow. There was no pain left. And I realized that by doing all of this, I had basically shifted out all of the blockages. And what that took to do was just following the natural movement of my body. And after all of that, on the last day of Vipassana, you're allowed to start talking again, and you meet very interesting people, and you swap stories about your experience that you've all shared together. And I remember talking to this one lady. She was a lovely lady, and we were talking about life and stuff, and I started telling something, nothing to do with the Vipassana. It was just some, old memory or old story about, telling about something that made me feel the emotion of frustration while I was telling her. And as soon as I spoke the words of frustration and I told my story, my frustration story, and I felt that feeling right here on these shoulder points, and the acupuncture channels, it's on the gallbladder channel, and the gallbladder is the organ to do with frustration. And as soon as that happened, boom, I got pain straight away, both sides. Physical pain happened in my free flow body that I'd already spent days fixing, and immediately, in one moment of speaking with the emotion of the frustration, I got physical pain. And that's when I realized how emotion causes physical pain, like hands down. And it's really made me connect to that reality, because they speak about it. Chinese medicine, we have 9 different causes of disease. One of them is the emotion, one of the top ones. So, all of the times in your life where you've ever had an emotion that is maybe coming from the more negative vibrations, and you haven't processed it or released it or understood or acknowledged, and it might be something that you don't even remember, all of that can get stored up in your physical body. So that's a really great thing to be aware of when you're doing all this moving around, is that every time you encounter a blocked feeling, and you just feel into what it feels like. And sometimes, yeah, as I said before, maybe a memory will come up. And yeah, it's a great way to start investigating how to bring out all of these sort of latent emotional blockages, is through using the physical sensation as a gateway in, so you can then, you know, use your body as a journey through its historical labyrinth of experience, and then unpack all of the things that you need to let go of. Yeah, so I hope that, you know, is a helpful watch. I've talked for 25 minutes now, a bit long, but yeah, if you like this video, you can leave a comment or share it with someone that it might inspire, and yeah, have fun with your unwinding.